to talk about for you is connecting the dots between the science behind why we age and why we actually have more disease as we get older. I think it's pretty obvious to us that for the most part, when we're young, we don't have the same problems that we acquire with age. It's pretty obvious that for the most part, young people aren't sick, aren't recovering slowly, that they are much more energetic than we are as we age, and there's a real reason behind that. So I want to talk about what that looks like for us in terms of health. Well, one of the things that I'm going to ask you to do is to think outside the box. If you're like most of us, and certainly where I spent the first large part of my field in natural health, is looking at supplements. Supplements are really what we came to in the century before we are here today. And they are a whole different approach. They tend to be a little bit, I think, of like a pill for an ill mindset. You know, we take one particular supplement for one particular problem. And so we're going to think outside of the box, and we're going to ditch that kind of thinking and don't take that and apply it to what we're going to share tonight, because this is a whole different way of looking at how we can help our health. Now, thinking outside of the box and inside of the box are obviously two different things. As I said, when we think inside the box, we think about, I have a liver problem. Let me take a supplement for the liver. Maybe I've got a heart problem or a joint problem, and I find something specific to that. Well, that really is kind of the old-fashioned way of looking at things. And if you're tired of dozens of supplements, which most definitely most of my clients were, and I certainly felt like having come to that point where I was using an enormous amount of supplements to deal with the injuries and assaults that I'd gone through over the years, I was looking for something that could be a lot simpler and have a much broader impact on my health, so that I really wasn't tied to taking dozens of supplements every day. And so if you feel like that's you, I'd love to see a 1 in the chat box. See if you resonate with that one. Get rid of all those supplements and let's look at something that is much more foundational rather than cherry picking. I like to talk about this publication, August 2016, because I believe that it sets the foundation for what we're talking about tonight. And I believe that it should communicate to you the importance of why this is essential for all of us. Whether you've got a health issue or whether you just simply know that investing in your health and being preventative in your mindset is probably the most valuable thing that you can do, this fits for all of us. Alterations in this thing that we're going to talk about, redox signaling, are observed in aging. That's part of why we change as we get older. But we also know that redox signaling is essential to physiological homeostasis. Don't get caught up in fancy words. All that means is the ability of the body to stay in a relative place of balance. We're never perfectly in balance. We're always shifting, and that is part of the strength of a healthy cell, being resilient enough to dodge and respond to when it is assaulted and recover. That's homeostasis. But here's the interesting point that I think applies to everybody, obviously, is that a sustained deviation, in other words, when our body is not able to respond, adapt, and remedy the problem and bring balance back, when it is in a sustained deviation from that homeostasis, this results in disease. So here we look at the mechanism that begins to create disease, which takes time. It's not something that happens overnight, but being out of balance for a long period allows the body to promote an opportunity for disease to take place. So our cell phones operate obviously best when they have strong signals that can kind of help us communicate clearly between us. Poor signals obviously mean poor conversation, poor communication. Drop calls obviously mean we don't actually hear anything the other person wanted to tell us. Our cells in our body are really no different whatsoever. They need a strong and vibrant communication system from cell to cell and within the cells as well. In order to maintain health and to prevent disease, they have to communicate loudly and clearly. This is another factor that changes with aging. And we all know that, right? Even our grandparents don't hear us as clearly as they might have done years ago. And we find ourselves shouting. This is no different. It's just an external example of changes that are taking place below the surface. Now, cells are always being damaged, or they're dying off, or unfortunately they become sick, and that's just the process of living. We can't get away from that, right? As Lynn says, we're all going to be exposed to the fact that we are a day older, and we can't slow down and stop that aging process, that chronological thing. But everything above the surface, all those things with titles to them, start as an imbalance below the surface. Now, how do we qualify how much of an imbalance we have going on below the surface? It's not like we really have this wonderful mirror that we can kind of pull back the curtains and analyze on a day-to-day basis just how much damage is going on, right? Well, most of it takes place. We don't even know that these shifts are happening for quite some time until enough of a shift has taken place below the surface that it pushes above the surface. And then unfortunately, all those symptoms come about. We don't feel good. We go to the doctors and then they give us some nasty title. But what is that title? It just represents the fact that it's a large overaccumulation of damaged cells that weren't repaired below the surface. Now, I'm sure if you would agree, if you were to take out some photos of yourself, especially if you're 40 or above, and you took out some photos of you 20 years earlier, you look different, right? That is a shift in aging. But what do we actually see? Are you seeing the wrinkles and the sagging? As Lynn said, I always talk about the fact that the wrinkles on the outside are a reflection of the wrinkles that are happening on the inside to all the organs and tissues. This is oxidation, it's aging. Maybe it's stiff and sore joints that you're suffering from. Maybe it's just poor sleep. But these things are signs that stuff is changing underneath the surface. Now, how much cellular damage do we have going on? Kind of goes in two different directions. One is just that process of time, oxidation or rusting, but when that builds and isn't being resolved, it creates one set of problems. On the other side of the scale, we have all the other things that come from stress. I'm sure there's not anybody on this call that can't relate to stress. Certainly in the last 3 or 4 years, we've all experienced stress. But you may have a lot more of it than someone else, and how resilient your cells are will determine how much of it you see on that right-hand side of the scale. So have you got the high blood pressure or the diabetes or, heaven forbid, the big C? So how do we know that those things aren't accumulating, since we can't really tell until they've arrived? Now, what we're learning about the importance of redox is that 6 Nobel Prizes underpin the breadth of this field of health science. It is leading the field. In fact, actually, science started back in the 1920s in this field, and none of us had heard of the word redox. This really wasn't even a thing until the last few years, where free radical biology has been changed into redox biology in medicine, because they recognize that free radical biology is a misnomer. It started this field of antioxidants and oxidants, but it actually was a misunderstanding of the importance and the balance that goes on within the human body. We've had 22 years of world congresses and scientists coming from all over the world to share and exchange the latest information on redox and what it does. Redox is in every cell of the human body. Therefore, it's in every single organ system of the human body. Therefore, it affects everything. But of course, science is looking at it from the medical standpoint. They're looking at it eventually to become a drug. What I love is, for the past 13 years, the company ASEA, who's actually stabilized these redox signaling molecules, has been able to connect the dots between this plethora of science and the application of actually consuming this in the real world and revitalizing our own internal redox system. That's the piece I love the most. And these signals, where are they made? Well, they're made in the mitochondria of every single cell. And what does the cell do? It actually uses the material that is there to create not only the Krebs cycle, the ATP, but it uses the saline. It breaks it up into those 4 components: sodium, chloride, hydrogen, and oxygen. And by reorganizing and utilizing it, it combines to create these catalytic functions, these chemistry actions, this process of production of energy that actually are the master molecules of our communication system. There's something called reductants, which are negative charges, and oxidants, which we're more familiar with, which are called positive charges. Science has pulled those 2 words together, and they formed this field of redox biology. It's really the cellular 911 of the human body. It's going to put out a signal to enable the body to detect when there's a damage to the cell, to be able to locate it, to repair or replace it, and do a whole bunch of other things. This signaling system is so foundational that we can't exist without it. We actually die in about 3 or 4 seconds when we stop producing redox molecules. We don't come into the world without a redox function. That is part of conception. And we go out of the world when it's no longer there. And all sorts of things go wrong when it's not working optimally. We have an intersection point that Lynn's going to talk about in more depth towards the end of my section on this. Verdis Norton, a retired vice president of strategy for Kraft Foods, a titan in traditional industry. He knew a lot about goods and delivery and marketing. And his intersection as a financial consulting retirement gig brought him across the path of a publicly traded company working in the field of redox biology. They were pushing a lot of research in the medical direction, and his intersection and experience with working in biology gave him an opportunity to work with this company. They were trying to take the production toward a drug route. That didn't take place, but Verdis was a smart man because he got to experience these molecules, and he recognized that there was a benefit to them, and he knew that they didn't truly understand what they had in their hands. The long and short of it was that he was able to put together an investment group and pull together a whole bunch of new scientists who were able to take 10 years of patents and research and go deeper into what this was. When they finally discovered that it was redox signaling molecules, they actually invested to produce this stabilization, which at that point was considered a total impossibility. And we'll talk a little bit about why that is. That is the brilliance of it. I'm not going to go into the full story, which is well worth taking a look at, but go take a look at discoverredox.com and look at the ASEA Genesis story. And you'll realize why this is an enormous breakthrough in a field which still has really no competition. What is redox? With the help of this atomical medical physicist and the team of PhD scientists, they discovered how to stabilize the lifespan of these highly fleeting molecules. They were able to take them from a 10-minute use to a 12-month expansion. We currently, because of the development of our science over the last 12 years, we now have a lifespan of 21 months. So we've been able to do a lot more with it, particularly in the last few years. But this is a game changer because we went from being in research, making molecules you had to consume and drink immediately, and you could study and test them, which is why we know so much about them, because we didn't discover them, we didn't make them. They've been making them for years. What we did was find out how to stabilize them instead of just being 10 minutes to now have a 21-month lifespan. Now it's a game changer. Now you can actually do something that is way beyond simply being in medical research or looking for drug application. So we have, back in 2009, the world's first and only cell signaling supplement. It's actually still the first and only on the market. Why? Because the technology is so patented and so highly proprietary, and because it's going to challenge you to think differently and outside of the box. Everything that we've known in supplementation is based on materials. Right? Nutritional supplements are materials, tangible things that you can grasp and you can analyze and you can reverse engineer. There is nothing in a redox signaling molecule bottle that is a tangible thing that you can analyze, because we are moving into kinetic energy and communication. And when you've got something that is kinetic energy, there is nothing tangible. It's like trying to grasp, a bubble in the air and it vanishes before you can grab hold of it. But what do we know? Because obviously, if we want to use this, we would want to know that it's not just some hype, right? It's not just somebody's notion of a nice little idea to say, oh yeah, we got a redox signaling molecule. But by knowing that this is third-party validated, this goes out to redox science specialists around the world who test every batch that we have and validate that what's in there is bioactive, stabilized redox signaling molecules. What that means is that we know we're guaranteeing that what we're buying is actually in the bottle. We meet all of the GMP standards and we have an FDA registered facility. So this is our beautiful guarantee that what you're getting is manufactured to the same standards and rigor as any drug manufacturing production. It's important when it's a drug because there's always a side effect. There's what we call a lethal dose 50. In other words, it can kill you if you take too much. You can certainly be allergic to it, and it can certainly cause side effects. The beauty of what we have here in our trials is that we are 100% non-toxic. You could actually drink the whole bottle that you're looking at, and some people choose to. If they've got really serious health conditions, they will tell you they feel much better with that number of active molecules in their system. Of course, we hope you don't need that. But the beauty is also that when we are bio-replenishing, not supplementing, but bio-replenishing something that is natively produced within the human body, you can't be allergic to it. And thirdly, and probably my most favorite, since I can't possibly say this about any other supplement that I've worked with in 20 odd years, is this is transparent to medication. In other words, if you're on medication, we want you to stay on that. It's not our job to take you off that. That's something you have to do with your doctor's permission. But you stay on your medication and you add this in and you track the changes that take place when your body's utilizing those additional redox signals, because it's not going to interfere with your medication. And I love that, because no matter how beautiful herbs are and supplements are with materials, they all have the potential to impact medication and can cause problems. So you do need to know how you use it. Here is the FDA registered facility. This is the only facility in the world that makes the supply for 35 countries. Why is that? I mentioned that we have a number of patents, but we have over 200 proprietary processes around what we do. We even go so far as 3D printing a lot of our equipment, and we're able to test on the spot and work out exactly what we're doing. Our testing is done and our production is done, and it is so specific now that we can literally create the same redox potential in batch after batch after batch by measurement. We have got this down to such a fine art. So if you're drinking this at this moment, or you come to drink it, this is where your product is going to come from, direct to your door in 35 countries. We ship to about 18 different distribution centers, and from there it is a local distribution to each customer. We provide a 30-day money-back guarantee, and I would not recommend, even though you can sometimes find it on third-party sites, that you purchase it. Why? First off, there's no guarantee. Second, we buy stuff that should not be on the market, and we know that a lot of it is tampered. They drill holes in the bottles, they consume the product, they refill it with salt water. Pay attention to that one, which is why a lot of people get bad results when they have that kind of thing, or that it's tampered or expired. You want to know that your product is certified, guaranteed, and freshly made in this facility if you're going to consume it. Plus, What we provide is also the expertise to help you navigate your health experience with it. So how does redox influence aging? Well, we're looking at aging. We're looking at the wrinkling on the outside becoming evident, but it started on the inside, right? Those two young girls have a lot more redox in them than the man in the middle. I'm assuming it's maybe their grandfather, I don't know, but you can see the difference. His redox potential is nowhere near as high as theirs is. Why is that? Because science has proven that we lose our redox potential from puberty at about 10% per decade. So in other words, we're producing fewer and fewer redox signals, but also the energy production within the cells is less and less effective. If you think of your cells as like a battery, they're not charged up as fully as we get older. So they have less potential for healing. That is what pH actually stands for, potential hydrogen. And a very healthy cell has a certain amount of additional potential hydrogen to donate to healing. When we're out of balance, it doesn't happen that way. And so this is why we know that things change. So what could happen if we can combat that loss by bio-replenishing and combating and pushing against this natural loss that we're going to see over the years? What would happen if we can interrupt the breakdown of aging and keep ourselves out of that place that statement made about if you are in a state of deviation for too long, you promote disease. We don't want to be there. I mentioned at the beginning also thinking outside of the box. When we take those supplements, we're thinking of one for the cardiovascular system, which has damaged cardiovascular cells. Or maybe we don't breathe so well because we have damaged lung cells. Or maybe we pick up everything known to man every time we're around anybody who's got a cough or a cold because we've got a weaker, damaged immune system function. So we need things and we're putting them to the specific problem. The beauty of when we work with redox is that now we're working in every single cell of the human body, 70 to 100 trillion cells that make up every organ system, every function in the body. So now we're able to drill down and have one thing that actually affects everything. And that is the shift in how we're going to look at being able to help prime the cells to have the energy necessary to stay healthy. If you're using this, how can you track what happens for you? We love to benchmark everything. Now, you may be on here tonight because you have severe joint problems. Right? And that's your number one complaint. Or maybe you're beginning to notice changes in your memory, and that's your number one complaint. But we have to think a little differently, because when we work in a non-targeted way, in other words, we are not going to say, I'm taking one supplement just for my lungs or one supplement just for my joints. We're going to target all cells. And we have to say, let's see what else is going to shift, because a priority is decided by the body. So we want you to track your health. We have these tracking forms, and the person who invited you to the call can help you go through that. Track everything from your energy to your sleep. How stressed are you? Do you respond easily to stress? Can you bounce back again? That's a key importance. What's your hormone balance like? Hormones are a huge area. It's mood, it's menopause, it's sex drive, it's sugar regulation. There's a lot involved in that. Mental focus and clarity. What's your skin like? Take photos as well of anything that is visual, because things change and we forget how they change. What's your discomfort level? And we'll talk about how to apply redox to discomfort. Digestion, eyes. Maybe you want to also track your weight. Perhaps you're an athlete like the man who started this conversation out at the beginning of the call. Track your performance, because these are beautiful metrics. Don't just focus on the big thing. And then we want you to track it not only from day 1 to day 7, but then at the end of day 30 and 60 and 90. We start by suggesting 4 ounces a day, 2 ounces in the morning, 2 ounces in the evening. But only 1 in 10 people are going to see and feel what's happening with those molecules at the end of 7 days. If you don't see or feel anything, we suggest that you follow the clinical trials, which are all done on 8 ounces, and double up. Why is that? Remember, I looked at that iceberg at the center. How much damage is under the surface? We don't really know. So the question in terms of shifting in our health is, how much does your body need? And how long is it going to need you to bio-replenish, to rebuild, in order to renovate and demonstrate the improvement? Only you're going to know that, which is why we want you to track your changes, because your journey is going to be very individual. But we do know halfway through, 50% of people are seeing things at 30 days. But the big shift is definitely there at 90 days, because we're moving and changing more cells over a 90-day period. More cells have more energy. Therefore, they can donate better healing. And so we know that 90% of people are really enjoying those changes at the 90-day period. Studies not simply out in the field in science, in terms of medicine, are also being done on our product. One of the ones in 2017 that was done at Toric Labs, a genetic specialist, it was an 8-week double-blind placebo-controlled gene study. I love this study because it reflected for me why I was already seeing changes with my clients when I was using this product. But what is beautiful and very unique is that 100% of the test group using the redox cell signaling supplement had a 20 to 31% sustained and beneficial improvement in 5 gene signaling pathways. You can see those pathways on the right-hand side: immune system, inflammatory system, cardiovascular health with vein elasticity, improving gut health with digestive enzyme production, and improving vitality and hormones regulation, but also supporting the body's ability to combat stress. In other words, have a resilient innate immune signaling system. I think the other unique and important point is that plain saline was given to the placebo group. And we would normally expect some kind of a shift. That's really just what double-blind studies always do. But here we saw no genetic change whatsoever on the placebo group. That's a very unique set of circumstances. But the beauty of this is it doesn't matter what our health issues are. This is going to impact all of us. It's important for all of us to have a strong immune system and a strong inflammatory regulation system in order to just maintain fundamental health. Other studies done in Pacific Northwest show us, again, as I mentioned, 100% safety, no allergies, no drug interaction. We have an 800% improvement in the efficacy of the glutathione. That's your master antioxidant. We have a 6.3% reduction in oxidation of LDL, significant shifts in metabolites. And in a mouse study, they ran 29% farther on ASEA, not because they were offered any cheese, but just because that powered them up. So that's why our athletes love it, because it provides the same increased endurance and recovery. Toric Labs' initial study in 2017 showed that there was a 30% increase in the NRF2, which is your antioxidants, your internal antioxidants, and it improved the apoptosis signaling. That's important for those people who have challenges with cells that like to multiply, because all cells have a natural lifespan. They should die off at a certain point and be replaced with a healthy cell. We want that signal to be strong. But our recent studies that have just come out from Western Australia show that, in fact, we have a 60% improvement increase in redox NRF2 production, both with the liquid and in our Renew 28, which is our topical application. So topical application, designed for skin, right? People used to spray the liquid and it was doing amazing things. It took them 5 years to find how they could actually put the same liquid into a tube and apply it on a topical use. But You notice that I mentioned only 1 in 10 are going to feel the effects of the drink in a first week, and maybe 50% at 30 days in. But how can you know very quickly that your body's gobbling up these amazing redox signaling molecules and putting them to work immediately? There's this beautiful way with the gel. This is what was the thing that really made me realize in my practice that this was significant and different, because I took this in and I tried this out on my clients. So if you're here today and you've got something that hurts, I would encourage you to grab a hold of one of these tubes and try this out. And if you buy some of your own, go put it on another 10 of your friends and practice and see what happens, because this was how I built my belief that there was something different about what was going on with this. If you've got something that hurts, rate it from 1 to 10. And take photos as well. If you've got movement issues, if you can't close your fingers, if you've got a restricted movement of the shoulder or the neck or the back, take a photo of what your range of motion is. Shake the gel up, because it's exactly the same as the liquid, except it has a little bit of silica in there to suspend this clear gel. And then I want you to apply it to the area that hurts. You can see it's totally clear. It's actually working the moment it touches the skin. This is not about absorption. This is about kinetic energy and communication already punching through from cell to cell. Apply it 3 times in 5 minutes. Wait 5 minutes and come back. Re-rate yourself. Right? Go bend those knees again and see if that's changed. Close that hand again, lift that shoulder again, move those knees, walk up and down those steps, whatever you did, and re-rate your level of discomfort and your range of motion. See what's changed. I think when you put it on 10 people and you watch and you see, it's going to help you realize that this is how quickly the signal's working. We can't always feel what they're doing with the liquid that fast, but if you want to know and you want to build your belief, this is how you should do it. It's just the most amazing thing. It didn't matter for me whether my clients had a hip problem or whether they had congested sinuses or whether it was a really severe head issue where they might take themselves into a dark room and take medication, or whether they'd broken their toe and they had a bruise. It didn't matter. Why? Because go back to that thing. Everything is about the cell, and wherever the damaged cell is, if we can give it more of the ability to communicate and restore its own internal ability to heal, then things change. So it's no longer about, do I have something for my lung or do I have something for my hip? It's about, do I have something to help any cell in the human body? I mentioned, and as Lynn mentioned, athletes use this. We have a lot of Olympic athletes on there. Why wouldn't they? If they can power their body to have a 29% increased endurance, faster recovery, better mental clarity, why would they not want to do that to get the edge on their competitors? But think about how that applies to us. What would you do in your life if you could have 29% more energy? Right? What are the things that are falling off of your plate, so to speak, that you don't have the energy to complete, or you feel too tired, you don't recover quickly enough to be able to do something else with your life? That can make a huge difference. And I love the fact that if a product is being used by an Olympic athlete, then this is the gold standard. Right? They don't consume anything without an enormous amount of rigorous testing and checking and approval, because their reputations and their job and their profession is on the line if they take something that could cause a problem. So if it's good enough for them, it's most definitely good enough for me. This is a summation of what redox signaling does. It detects problems in cells, protects the healthy cells for their natural lifespan, repairs and replaces damaged or unhealthy cells, maintains accurate genetic expression, and supports adaptive response in our innate immune signaling system. These are all foundational for us to live healthy, vital lives. How can we apply the development of redox in its pure form, pure redox biology, molecules? We can drink it through the liquid. This is bio-replenishing what you've already got inside you, but you make less of with time. You can apply it with the power of the redox ASEA Renew 28. I mentioned it's a skincare product. You can see the 28-day changes, right? How can we turn over our skin cells faster? That's an anti-aging process. If we can speed that renewal up 16% in 28 days. Twice as concentrated as the Renew 28 is the intensive serum. This is a slightly different carrier. It's dimethicone rather than silica, and it's beautiful for fine lines and wrinkles. And probably our most popular product currently is the redox clay. This is a 3-year project in finding a certain pure bentonite that will not activate. The challenge with this is these molecules need to go to work the moment they're in contact with organic matter. So it's quite a brilliant science to be able to find something that doesn't activate these molecules until they come in contact with us. This pulls out all of the impurities with all those negative charges, tightens, refines, softens. It's just the most amazing product. And in fact, one of our athletes has been using it on tired muscles and driving the redox deeper into the muscles for benefits. But it is really a skincare product. I mentioned that we're moving from materials to energy, kinetic energy, which is pure redox. But we mustn't forget that we need the materials, right? The nutrients on which redox and the mitochondria work. And we can take that and we use it with the science of redox. And here we're using organic whole food nutrients to actually do lock and key into cells to produce very specific functions. Here with our cell performance, we can target production of energy, extra redox within the cell. The mind allows us faster clarity, better memory, better retention. Mood for calming down anxiety, helping us really just, get a sense of clarity and less anxiousness. If you have a mood that's not stable, that's a really supportive one. If you feel like you're in the dumps and you need a lift, it's also really good. Those 3 all in clinical studies extend telomere length. In other words, that's protecting our lifespan. Not only are they short-term beneficial, you drink them and they work within 15 to 30 minutes, but they're also long-term improvements behind the science of what they are. And probably the most popular one for those of us who want better skin, fewer wrinkles, is the Radiance, is the final one on the bottom. This is not done more than once a day. These can be done 3 times a day. This is plant-based collagen, the science behind how you provide and don't put in the animal proteins that have to be broken down, but just go straight in with the perfect matrix of the amino acid composition to let the body rebuild the redox function and use it for collagen. We support all of these functions with our skin, with our advanced redox skincare system, and we target and support with, fortunately, a very foundational, not broad, but very comprehensive organic, non-GMO, whole food nutritional program. Source is rather a broad spectrum, or you can kind of think of it like a multivitamin, but it's a lot more complex than that. LifeMax provides cognition, heart function, skin, and a whole bunch of other things, and a lot more vitality. Biome produces a better small intestine function there with 16 probiotics. And Omega is from fish. That's the only one that's not vegan. And we mix the 3, 5s, and 7s together. And that is a beautiful product that I love using for people who've love to have an argument with the floor in their head. That one really supports healing. This is part of the 28-day clinical studies, the seeing is believing, why we can change the way we're aging from the outside. But remember, we want to change it from the inside by drinking. All over body skin therapy, we did another study, 16% improvement in cellulite. We are going to soothe irritated skins. This becomes our kind of go-to. You really dump everything else out of your cabinets and you don't really need it when you work with Renew 28. Here's examples of refining the pores with the Radiance. We see improvement in fine lines around the eyes and the depth of the wrinkles. We see improvements in hair, skin, and nails. And on a personal basis, I'm seeing a lot of improvement with connective tissue. This is not designed for connective tissue, but it does impact it. And so I've seen a lot of improvements for that. This is our age-associated cellular decline, right? We look great when we're younger. We look worse as we get older. That's the nasty inbuilt process of aging, right? But when we bioreplenish, when we combat and break down of aging, we see a shift. This is Rosie in her journey between 84 and 91. And the reason I think this is the most influential product technology I've ever worked with is because I do not and never have had a one single product that can take somebody at 84 and make them look at least 10 years younger by the time they're 91. We have other resources through Facebook and through our website where we record interviews which you listen to, and some other resources. The person who invited you can definitely help you get connected to any of that. And I'll pop over to Lynn because I want Lynn to pick up on the really important piece of Curtis Norton and why we are what we are and who we are, the ethos of his decision not to go the pharmaceutical route.
Thank you, Carolyn. This, to me, as incredible as the products are, this is really what has kept me involved with this company. Curtis Norton made a decision 13 years ago that I don't know how many of us on this call would have made that same decision. But as Dr. Hoffman mentioned earlier, he acquired this technology. He hired a team of scientists who stabilized it. For him, initially, it was just a business play, though. He had contacted some colleagues of his who were at a pharmaceutical company in New Jersey, the CEO, told them what he had. They were very interested in it. He was planning to just flip this technology. But while he was in these negotiations with them, he had a focus group of 40 people, neighbors, friends, family members, church members, who had various levels of health challenges, and he had them trying it. So this company sent their top scientists out. They looked at the prior company's research, they looked at his research, and they offered him a very, very large sum of money, legacy money. And they had one caveat, and that caveat was that this group of people he had on it, and his family and himself, all had to come off it. It was not going to be publicly available. They told him if he took the check, he had to basically shut his operations down and go do whatever else he was going to do. In the background, while these 40 people were trying the product, there were 6 of them who had life-threatening problems. They had basically been told to get their affairs in order, and had been given, kind of a timeline to do that in. And after a couple months, when he went back and checked in with everyone, those people were thriving. Those challenges were resolving. So when the company told him, this pharmaceutical company told him he had to take everybody off it, he told them that ethically, morally, he could not do that. And they said, look, if you don't do that, we walk away, and he said, then you're going to have to walk away. And so he didn't take that check. And that was a huge turning point, not only in his life, but also it set the foundation for the ethos and the culture behind this company. That's when he founded the company we all now know and love as ASEA. And he was trying to figure out, how do I get this to the world? How do I keep it in such a way that there is always a thought that, or a culture where people come first. We're not in this for the money. And so as he looked at different ways to bring this to market, he realized because he had a technology that was many, many, many years ahead of the science, he knew that there had to be a story. There had to be a way for people to get educated. And somebody suggested to him, word of mouth marketing. We call it now next level marketing. And so he decided if he was going to bring this to market this way, having people share their stories, having people get educated, he wanted to elevate that. He wanted to make sure that no one ever lost sight of the fact that it is a human being that we're talking to. Each person on here is a human being with things going on in their lives, joys, sorrows, etc., and to never lose sight of the fact that that's who we are here to serve and to help. It's not about making a sale. It's not about the bottom line. It is about bringing this incredible technology that is a gift to every person that we meet, because we don't know what's happening in other people's lives. And that is really what he wanted at the foundation of what this company stood for. And I've been involved with this company now a little over 10 years, and I have, to a person who I have met who is involved with this, that is where their heart lies. Um, Everyone is here with a lot of integrity, with a lot of a desire to just change the world for better. In fact, their mission statement is to better people's lives and be a force for good in the world. And when we first hear companies, their mission statements, a lot of times it's like, well, that sounds great, but are you actually, walking your talk? And I think those of us who are involved with this, who are on tonight, can all say that absolutely this company stands very firmly in that ethos and that culture. They are here to transform other people's lives, not just through the technology, which is doing it, but also anyone who wants to get involved and wants to share in this mission to change lives. It's about allowing them to just blossom as human beings and become the best possible version of themselves, reaching their own potential as we're out there helping others. So I really appreciate the fact that on Tuesday nights we get to talk about that for a few minutes, because I sometimes think people overlook that. And if you're going to try this for your health, or if you're thinking about, wow, I'm already thinking about, my mom could use this, my sister. If you're thinking about other ways to help people, I think it's really important to understand who's steering the ship, right? Who is behind this? And it is truly an incredible group of people with a very, very deep resolve and a lot of integrity who are behind this.